We have Amy Winther, who's the design director, and Jon Schafer, who is the senior brand manager. Hi, folks.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us for this AMA session. I've spoken to quite a few design leaders and design teams in the past, and usually there's a little bit of hesitation to come to an AMA session and kind of be an open book in front of an audience to talk about your design process. So first of all, thank you for that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. We're excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So Amy and Jon, maybe let's have a quick introduction of your journey as a designer, and also about your path till now at Zapier. And also one thing I forgot to ask you, where are both of you joining us from?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Do you want to go first, Jon?
Yeah. So I'm in Portland, Oregon. And let's see. So my path to design is a little bit atypical. I started in 2004, and I worked for a lot of small design studios back when print was kind of like the rule of the land, and I worked for a lot of agencies, and then in-house at like big companies like Nike and Adidas. And then I kind of saw the tide shifting to product design, and I got into that and did freelance product design for 5 years, all remote. And then I kind of found out about Zapier through this like blog post, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're hiring. And they were, and I got this job working on the revenue team, which is all like pricing and packaging. So I was on that team for a couple of years, and then there was an opportunity to kind of shape design outside of product at Zapier, which was at that time marketing. And I have a deep history of brand design, and I thought that was a big opportunity to shape brand design at Zapier. So for the last year-ish, a year and a half, I've been creating the brand design function at Zapier.
Mm-hmm. And then myself, I live in Seattle, Washington, and I've been here my whole life. I went to the University of Washington, studied interaction design, and then from there went straight to Zillow, where I was there for almost 8 years. So I started out as a junior designer, transitioned into management about halfway through, and then ended up launching a new product called Zillow Offers, which reinvented how you sell your home, became a director, and then thought that it was time to move on and try a new place. And at that point, try to imagine pre-COVID, no one was working remote. And I was really curious how you could do design remote. And Zapier has always been remote during its whole 10 years existence. So it really stood out to me, and I was excited about the product, excited about the opportunities. So I joined exactly a year ago today. This is my 1-year anniversary. And so it's been amazing to grow the team this year. Jon's one of the talented designers on the team. So I've built out alongside him the brand function, established the design system into a more mature design team, and also been building out the product design teams as well.
That's incredible. It's incredible to hear both of your journeys till date, and with Jon kind of moving from revenue team straight to brand. That's incredible, and must be a really exciting kind of move within the company. And and Amy, from real estate, prop tech to no code tools, those are kind of two areas that I definitely am extremely passionate about. So it's the nerd in me was kind of like all getting excited when you were sharing that that switch. So that's pretty cool. So thank you so much for the for sharing the brief introduction. So as I think kind of picking up on some of the things you shared in the introductions, it's really exciting to hear that Zapier as an organization has been always remote, even pre-pandemic, pre-COVID days. So if you can give us an idea of how large the organization is, and then kind of how large the design team itself is, and what the composition of the team looks like.
Mm-hmm. As a company, we just hit about 500 people, so it's a rapidly scaling startup. For design specifically, we're now at 26 designers, and that is across that's including brand design, product design, content design, and research. Research is actually kind of a sister group right now. So we work really closely with them, but they aren't technically part of design. But we work we work hip to hip with them. Trying to think. Would you add anything to that, John?
No, it's well said.
So 26 designers, and again, because 500 people itself and managing a remote organization of 500 people must be like a massive task for the people culture team, at the organization. And so for the design team itself, 26 designers, geographically, are they sprinkled kind of all across time zones, or is it more focused in certain geographies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone I feel like is in North America. I don't know if I don't have hard data offhand, but I think the reason it works well is that we have EPD trios, and so that works where we have a designer and an engineer and a product manager, and they're all kind of embedded in that, so that each designer is sort of hip to hip with those sort of three-legged stool, more so than trying to figure out time zones for all the other designers.
Mm-hmm. We have recently added several designers to the team from Canada. So shout out to everyone who is saying they're from Canada. And then we just had a designer also join from Argentina as well. But like John mentioned, we focus primarily on centering teams and on consistent time zones so that you don't have to have folks who are on totally opposite schedules from one another. So within each team, you tend to see a lot of centralization, but across the whole org, there can be a lot of difference in where people are.
Right. That sounds pretty exciting, and the EPD trios kind of terminology also I'd never heard that. So at one point I was like, oh, what's EPD trio? It sounds really exciting, but yeah, engineering product design, or it's like similar to the pod structure. I think in previous teams we've spoken to, so folks work on pods. In these 26 designers across the design function, how are the is it just one big team? Because or it's not. I think you already answered that there is a product design function or sub function, and there is a brand function. What do those two kind of sub teams or teams within this design function look like?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say all of design reports up through product, but the brand design team primarily coordinates and collaborates with the marketing org. And the reason why everybody reports up through product is so that we have consistency of the design from start to finish, so that what we are putting out in terms of our marketing is also being pulled into our product, and we are able to maintain consistency. Sometimes, and actually we had this when I was at Zillow, we had two different design teams reporting into different leaders and different organizations, and that oftentimes creates a dissonance in the design itself. And so this allows us to stay consistent in terms of experience while also interfacing with different parts of the organization.
To add to that, brand design is kind of uniquely suited that way, is that we kind of report to work for marketing, but since we're sort of right in the design, right next to product design, that makes the kind of like connected tissue between product and marketing a lot easier than if we were like sort of on an island somewhere else. So, and the other thing I was going to add is that design at Zapier is like, product and brand, but then there's like content design and then design systems. So we have these sort of like subgroups but within the greater design org. Yeah.
There was like a natural little smirk on my face when you mentioned that the brand design is not a separate island, because I've been in a scenario where I worked on a product design team where the brand itself was kind of in a silo, and so you would design the product, and then when you would go look at the marketing aspect of the platform, and it was two different stories were being told, and there was always a lot of kind of inconsistency. So that's really smart to have almost it acts like a bridge in between the two teams, apart from serving its own function. Amy, you mentioned that all of design rolls under product. So how much of that, from a kind of a reporting line structure when the trios are working, how deep does the impact of this reporting structure go into design? And the reason I ask is because there are always kind of some preconceived notions that come from design reporting into the CTO, or kind of engineering in some teams, design reporting into product. Is there any impact, or do you not see kind of more on the IC level? Do you see any kind of impact from the product that trickles down all the way into the trios?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we do report up into product, but we have different layers to the organization. So there's a zone level layer of leadership, and then there's a team level layer of leadership, and each of those has that EPD structure, which is similar to the pod structure. And what I love about that is it really creates equality amongst the three functions of engineering, product, and design, and it lets each function have equal representation at each layer of leadership. The one gap that we have acknowledged and have recently been able to fill, which is exciting, is having design represented at that C-suite, at that executive level. And so that's something that will be happening this year, which we'll be able to talk more about down the line. But that has been the biggest gap. So we're excited as a team to now truly have leadership at every level. So even though there is that reporting structure, I am impressed with how design does have equality within the product organization. Design is pushing on strategy at every level, and really has representation of leadership at every step of the way.
That sounds really exciting that you've got someone joining it at the C-suite level as well, because I think even from a motivation / optics level for the team, I'm sure it feels quite exciting to have representation at the top decision making layer. I had a small question when I was kind of drafting the layout of the session for both of you. Which is your favorite team to collaborate with across the org? And you can only choose one.
Oh man.
I feel like it's a trap. I'm gonna create enemies somehow.
I'm sure it's only the design team at Zapier watching, so it'll be our secret.
My main stakeholders are marketing. So marketing is split up into all these sort of sub teams and data reports and PR and so on. And I think it's a hard toss up between video and social. Our video department is pretty nascent, and so we started to really kick off a lot of fun campaigns, and articulating our point of view through animation has been really exciting. And then social always has these really fun challenges to kind of come across. So somewhere between though, I'm saying two teams. Sorry, social and video.
Okay.
Oh, this is tough. Well, and because we're also we're very cross-functional in our team. So thinking about a specific team, it has many different functions represented. So it's almost a bit challenging to answer. But I've really enjoyed working alongside an emerging team that's developing internally around customer insights. So they've been developing personas, they've been establishing baselines for our Net Promoter Score on the marketing side. And so it's been really fun to collaborate with them and understand how Zapier is positioned within the broader market, especially as we talk about later on this new creative director role. But that's been one team that I've really enjoyed working with.
That's pretty cool. And so as you're talking about collaborations and working with other folks, and especially Zapier being, again, a completely remote organization, I'm sure there are quite a few kind of core values that the organization has that helps kind of keep everyone aligned on the longer vision. And so Sarah is asking a question what are some values of your organization? And I'm assuming there are many. So if you can highlight, your maybe the favorite ones or the ones that you feel most kind of passionate about.
Yeah, I guess as a company, we have 5 core values, and then I gotta be put on the spot here. So it's default to action, default to transparency, empathy, no ego, build the robot, and what's the fifth?
Growth through feedback.
Growth through feedback. Sorry, I should have it like on a poster behind my desk. So that's kind of sounds a little jargony, but basically like it's, defaulting to action is, if you see something that could use, there's an opportunity, something needs to be solved, like you have the sort of autonomy to address it, which is really great. So autonomy and power and all that is sort of open to everybody, which I really like. Defaulting to transparency basically just means like working out in the open. Since we're a remote company, it's really important that anything we're doing, people can kind of see like where you are in a process, or if you need feedback on something, you get it kind of early and often. So love that value. Building the robot is really tied to our product, I think, because a lot of the time, we're like, that's a good example. Every Friday, the design team has this like water cooler question. This is kind of minor, but which is where we get a Zap that runs this sort of tied to Google Sheets, and it says like, what are you doing this weekend? And it's some like random question, like would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 100 horse-sized ducks? Something like that. Just something fun, to like bond with the team and like kind of get to know each other a little better. And so it's just, instead of like having someone to do that manually every Friday, it's just sort of, well, I'll just, build this out for that. Do you want to talk about the other two? I feel like I'm...
Yeah. Another one is growth to feedback. And that's one that I think oftentimes could get touted by a company, but I've really seen it play out here. I mean, even just before we joined the call, I was reading an article posted on our internal blog about how the execs are going through a 360 feedback cycle from all of their reports. And so at every part of the organization, feedback is a constant thing that's valued and given. And when you join, you're actually trained on how to give feedback in appropriate ways and in helpful ways. So that one I've definitely seen played out a lot. And then the other one is, I'm trying to think, empathy, no ego. This is, that's our last one. And I think it really speaks to how it's really a kind culture. Everyone is really there to support one another. It's not about who's who within the company. It's really about how we're all trying to drive towards the same goals, and we're trying to do that collaboratively. And so that's a value that I think we really rely heavily on in terms of things like hiring, really looking for people who are team players and who are willing to give credit where credit's due, and not just trying to kind of build themselves up.
Thank you, Sarah. Hopefully that answered the question, and it's really impressive that you folks remembered all the values. I like that you only have 5. I've been in companies where there were like 11, and you're like, how can I remember all the core values? So now I know Zapier came up a few times when you were explaining the values and kind of giving us a sneak peek into how design happens at Zapier. So apart from Zapier, what does the tool stack looks like for the design team?
So I mean, the biggest is Figma. We use Figma for everything. Our design systems are built in there. We use it for like sort of brainstorming sessions, like Crazy Eights and journey maps and stuff like that. For like inspiration boards, it's kind of everything. Second from that, I think would be Slack or Coda. It's kind of a toss up between which one is more used. But Coda is something that we sort of transitioned to somewhat recently away from Quip and Google Docs, just because it kind of is all in one, tables and Gantt charts and roadmap views and all this kind of stuff. And Slack, and that sounds kind of like a cliche, but Slack is what we use every single day. And it's funny when it goes down, it's like kind of like a snow day, it's like, well, what do I do now, right? But offhand, those are the 3 big ones, I'd say.
Yeah, we don't use email at all, so that's hence the heavy Slack usage. And then the other, in terms of processes, we have a lot of processes. I think that's one of the ways we're able to work so successfully remote with such a large organization, is everything is documented. There's a process for everything. So we've worked hard this past year to define our design playbook, which is what are the expectations are for a designer throughout their whole process. And builds into this broader product playbook, and that's product meaning how we build product, not just the product management discipline. And so you can look up what the expectations are for an engineer or product manager or researcher at every stage of this consistent journey that we go through to develop product.
That's really cool. Where do those playbooks live? Because often you see companies invest a lot of time in kind of building these documents, but either they don't get updated or no one's kind of referring to them. So are you trying to kind of like tackle that?
Yeah, they all live within Coda. We also have a homegrown internal blog called Async, which is where everything gets posted. So there's links there. And then we also have links in Figma as well. So there's links everywhere to everything.
Yeah. It feels like if you ever create anything at Zapier, you should like deep link it in Slack, and then it's like also in Figma and Coda. It's like this trinity.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I was going to ask a question like why Coda and not Notion, but instead of going there, just about 2 weeks ago, I was trying to do something in Figma and kind of like automate some like design generation for some of our social assets. And I was trying to use Zapier for that. And are there kind of like any neat kind of workflows that you've automated using Zapier and any of these design tools?
My team, brand design, we have a request process. So if you need design outside of product, you basically fill in a type form, and that kicks off this 9-step app that goes from type form to Airtable to Jira to Coda to all these different Slack thread. It doesn't work with Figma, which would be kind of awesome. But no, like it could automatically create a new file or something. That'd be kind of neat. Yeah, that's pretty integral to our team. Is this Zap that powers basically all of our projects? Yeah.
One of my favorite tools that the team built was because we integrate with over 3,000 apps, we're constantly having to pull in a bunch of different app icons. And so the team built this plugin with Figma where you can just type in the name of an app and you can pull in the assets. So that's been really helpful for us to be able to prototype these different experiences quickly.
Yeah, shout out to Todd who created that plugin for the team. It's awesome.
That definitely sounds really, really exciting. When we were earlier chatting about a lot of these processes and a lot of the playbooks that you built, we have a question from Eric, and I can't pull it up here because it's in the LinkedIn chat. But Eric is asking, does Zapier have like a suggested or mapped out career path, in the playbooks as well? Like what constitutes a junior or senior or director? It's almost like a skills matrix, kind of more playbooky version of the skills matrix. And if you have any specific opinions to that.
We have a career growth framework for the company, and that includes ladder levels, which articulate the skills needed at each level. And those have a variety of different aspects. So strategy, impact, execution, and growth are the core ones there. And so there's an articulation of what strategy looks like at the junior level versus the director level, and all the steps in between. We also have something that's separate than that. So that's what things like performance reviews are all driven by, and what level we hire people at. Separately, we also have growth plans. And what I love about growth plans is that they're really intended to understand where an employee wants to go with their career overall, whether that's during their time at Zapier or where they want to go next. And so we, as managers, myself as a manager, gets to support the employee in the totality of their career and their goals and their desires, and really try to help shape and form experiences here at Zapier. But inevitably you get to a place where you're wanting to move on, you're wanting to try something else, and that's something that we make sure is a part of the story as well. So that one we never do performance reviews on your career goals or anything like that, but it's just a helpful tool to have conversations between an employee and their manager on where they're wanting to go and how we can, as managers, best support that.
That's incredible. That's really nice. And I know you mentioned strategy, as kind of one of the aspects of the career growth framework when you're talking to or you're doing performance reviews and stuff like that. So we had a question earlier around first of all, I would say, like, do you have a lot of designers with business background or kind of strategy heavy background? And either way, what kind of the question is, like, what kind of core values do you feel that designers with a more kind of heavy business background than a conventional design background can bring to the team?
At this point, most of our designers are able to handle the end-to-end process for design. So they're able to do everything from engaging in strategy discussions, even doing some research themselves, all the way to doing the final designs with engineers. And that's partly because we've been, lately we've been growing, but we have been a fairly small design team. And so we're just now getting to the point where we're starting to specialize when we hire. So lately we've hired designers who have been stronger in the strategic thinking and kind of can strategize alongside the business side of things. But traditionally, we have been hiring more well-rounded designers.
That makes I think it's just kind of part of the regular, like, design maturity path for most organizations. So it makes a lot of sense. So before we kind of close on the tools and processes part and move more into the roles, open roles on the team, let's do the favorite question again. So any kind of favorite framework or kind of a process of design that both of you find incredibly helpful in your respective roles?
That's a good question. From my team, much of my work is trying to establish and systemize our kind of brand identity. And that proves challenging depending on sort of the medium. So if it's video, like, what does that look like versus a landing page? Kind of a big process that I'm happy that we're starting to do more of is to kind of think concept first. So that's kind of I feel like kind of traditional in sort of design studios and agencies where you sort of like write out a paragraph of like what the idea is and then build a script from there for a video, let's say, and then kind of build off from there. So you sort of start with writing first instead of like jumping straight into design, sort of like sketching in a way. And that's been really fun because at least on the brand design side, there's a strong partnership between our writers, our content team, and like all the people who are sort of on the project. So it's very cross-functional, concept-driven, which is exciting for me because that's the kind of background that I come from.
Have you experimented when like this sounds really interesting, that approaching design with first kind of almost like writing a script? Have you played around with any of these AI GPT-3 tools where you just write like a few words and it spits out a whole script for you?
No, never.
They are quite like freaky, but also so good. And I can't remember a name because most of them are like research platforms, so their names are URLs are pretty weird. But I threw in so many weird, kind of keywords, and it can like spit out a script for like a Netflix original,
Wow.
And you can put in as many kind of like twists and turns, but those things are getting. So again, I'm just looking for the future where in my Zapier I'm just connecting all these tools, and it's like you write one word and it's like the story then becomes the design. And
That's amazing. You're like a composer.
Yeah.
I'll kind
Amy.
I'll brag on John here. So this past year, he's built out these two systems, an email design system, and then also a landing page design system. And this has really helped to democratize design within the marketing organization. So rather than John or our other brand designer having to design every single email or every single landing page, there's now kind of a self-service tool that anyone, whether you're a designer or not, can use to leverage our brand well, leverage our design system well, and be able to create on brand and consistent messaging for those different spaces. So that's really helped us be able to up-level our team to focus on more strategic design. And we can now be in the place of kind of reviewing their work rather than having to output all of the work ourselves.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, especially the email design system, having worked in emails in the past, and just how painful they can be to work with. Like, kudos to you, John, for kind of like building out a whole system that helps everyone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's amazing. Okay, so Amy, you already kind of shared earlier, and we kind of shared the job post in the Slack group too. So Zapier is looking for the first kind of creative director on the brand team. So if you can tell us a little more about the role.
Definitely. Yeah, well, it's a really exciting time at Zapier. We are going deep in investing in our brands this year, which is the first to date. So we're looking for someone who can come in and really help drive that from a strategy perspective, drive alignment across the organization, so across the marketing and the product organizations. So we're calling it a brand refresh, but who knows how wildly different it'll look. We haven't done those explorations yet. But right now we have the Zapier, we have a fairly limited but beloved brand of Zapier. So we're really excited to create more principles around what does Zapier stand for? Who are we? What's our voice and tone? And then how does that get translated into a really exciting creative direction? So that's what we're looking for, is someone to come in and lead the charge there and work alongside the head of brand and the VP of design as well, in terms of getting that across the entire product and organization.
That sounds quite an incredible opportunity. And as you were, kind of talking about the brand and the current state of the brand, I was just kind of going through the screens in my mind, because I'm in Zapier like every single day. And so one thing that I definitely noticed when there was a big product redesign that happened, a year or maybe a year and a half ago, like the whole UI got a really nice refresh. And that was really neat. Like the tool itself is, looks really well designed. From a brand perspective, the tool definitely right now, again, from just the tool perspective, I've not looked at the videos or social, and other kind of marketing assets. It definitely looks quite balanced right now. So it's not, completely on the $100 million Series B round startup, with all the bright colors and kind of flat vectors across the tool that you see in a lot of kind of high growth scale ups these days. And it definitely does not look like a enterprise no code tool, because those look like it might as well be code, because I can't seem to figure out many of those tools. Sure. So is the brand going to evolve a certain way? Or another way to ask the question is also like, what is the current kind of most of the customer segment look like? Like, is it more enterprise folks? Is it more, kind of indie makers or startups?
Yeah,
go for it,
ahead. The first question about where is it headed is sort of unknown. That's a lot of like what we're working on right now, is like sort of evaluating positioning and defining attributes, really are like personality, and where it will kind of go from there. And that's why it's really exciting for this, whoever creative director we get, because they get to kind of help shape that. But for who it is, keep going, Amy.
For who it is, our target audience is small and medium-sized businesses. So we're really focused on that market. And then I'd say some of the things that we've been hearing consistently about Zapier is that it's really loved. And when people use it, they get a lot of joy out of it. So I think there's this natural kind of, we even have a tagline, Zapier makes you happier. And I think that has really resonated with the market, of just this kind of playful, fun, happy brand. So I think you'll still continue to see elements of that. But there's a lot of questions around, well, what does it mean to be a happy brand? And what does it mean to be too happy? And what does it mean to not be happy enough? So I think that's where we're playing around and experimenting right now.
Yeah, the happy part, I think the copy at many places I've noticed that too. When I'm trying to delete a section of the Zap or a few other things, it's just very conversational and it's not mechanical. It does not sound like a robot is saying, kind of like talking to me. Whereas some of the other platforms I use for different aspects, like I use Integromat a lot. I've been checking out other kind of these no-code tools, and definitely it's yeah, it does look like I'm walking into a suit and tie environment, and I'm just like trying to figure my way out.
Sure.
So Zapier definitely has that friendly vibe, which I really appreciate as a user. And Kimberly had a question, kind of not specific to the role, but more to this change. So, how do you generally go about kind of preparing users upfront with any kind of massive brand redesigns or refresh?
It's a good question. I don't think we have this figured out yet. I've seen this happen a variety of ways. I've been a part of processes where there is no preparation, you just flip a switch. And I think there's times for that, especially when there are scenarios where you as a company are wanting to go in a completely different direction and there's kind of no desire to head back. I think those are times where you can't prepare people for what's coming and you just trust that they'll come along with you, or you're trying to go after a brand new target audience. Other ways that we might go about this are doing a more phased rollout where it's introduced in a variety of spaces, but not all at once. Or we might go the route of testing out a bunch of different ideas first before committing to one direction. So I hope that isn't too dissatisfying of an answer. It's a great question. We are asking the same one.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I don't have really a good answer either, but I guess I'll say that I've always appreciated companies that like really bring me in on the process of like what happened, why it happened, what they tried, what didn't work. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I just feel like I'm like along the journey with what they did, and then, oh, that's where they landed. That makes a lot of sense. So I hope we do the same.
Yeah, that sounds a really neat way. I can't think of like good examples of companies that have done that, but that would be incredible, especially with the the whole value that you shared up front around being transparent, kind of building in the open, designing in the open. And I think irrespectively, Design Twitter, if there's a major rebrand, Design Twitter will definitely be kind of all up in arms for 5 days.
Yes.
Oh, I like the older version better. So I think that's just. It's kind of our way of bonding,
Yes, definitely. It will definitely be, I think the one thing we feel really confident about is really evolving the brand off of a lot of customer insights. So that is one piece that I feel confident in that we will maintain, and we have been doing so far. It's really listening to the user base.
That sounds incredible. Coming back to the open role of creative director on the brand team, is that role, like, how is that placed within the brand team? Like, is that something like the whole team kind of reports into the creative director, and creative director then reports into the head of design, the new role that you would have at the C-suite level?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And I think you already mentioned that the role itself is remote friendly. Are there any kind of other specific, kind of constraints that you're putting together around this role? Whether it be around any kind of background that the person should be coming from, again, whatever you can share, like, are there like agency background is preferred, or someone that has taken a company through a major rebrand exercise in the past? Are there any kind of these, either constraints or certain aspects of an applicant that would be helpful to know about?
Definitely. Yeah, I'm happy to share here. So we're really looking for someone who at least has some experience internal. A lot of candidates have agency background, which is great as well. I think someone who only has agency background, it might be a little bit tougher to find a match there. But we are looking, and we're also looking for someone who has led a rebrand before, and preferably someone who has then maintained it afterwards, because this isn't just one and done for us. This is a role who will need to usher out a new phase of Zapier and then really build systems and maintain those and evolve those over years. So if someone has had that experience previously, that would be a really strong candidate from our perspective.
That sounds that's really neat that you said that. That's someone that it's not just about someone that has done the rebrand part, but kind of like help maintain it. Because I think that phase itself can be quite tricky to manage, and going through the rebrand is not just about the design artifacts itself, and it's it's a lot trickles down into even up to your core values and everything. So that's really neat that you mentioned that. What is the are there any sneak peeks you can share about the new phase of Zapier? Is there kind of more to the platform that kind of you already know of or you're working on that many folks would be looking at, or is it more kind of like just kind of the growth and scale of the company continues to go up?
It's definitely a growth play for us. So it is looking at where are we at today and how can we really connect further with our target customers. So yeah, no sneak peeks to divulge here, but definitely exciting work coming and exciting to see how we evolve the brand.
Yes. Yeah, I can't share anything either. I just feel like this is going to be a really big year for design at Zapier.
Right. Yeah, I think designers definitely, I don't know if everyone in design is realizing this, but with the sudden surge in just the no-code ecosystem, designers are at such an advantage because we could always I strategize, ideate, conceptualize the things, but we were always stuck at the building part, and that's where we were dependent on other teams, other kind of folks, even budget constraints. But now with the whole no-code tool ecosystem, it's opened up so many opportunities for designers even as makers, right? And kudos to Zapier. Zapier was doing this before no code became cool, or the term no code became famous. Yeah. So you can tell I've been using it for quite a long time. So I definitely have really appreciated that aspect. As we are heading towards the end of the session, we have some kind of other questions which might not be specific to the creative director opportunity. But Amy and John, if anyone wants to know more about the role, what are the best ways to kind of answer those questions?
I think if you're looking for more information about Zapier, you can definitely check out our careers page, which has a lot of information about our core values and what Zapier is like, things like benefits, all of that. You can also just apply directly to the role and reach out to the recruiters who can answer more specific questions there. And then if you have any highly targeted questions, you're welcome to reach out to myself in the Design X channel, and I'm happy to help with what I can.
That's amazing. One thing I completely just struck me, and it's good because we still have 7 minutes, is are you able to give us a 20,000 feet view of the interview process for this role? How long, how many steps are involved? What does that look like? I think that could be incredibly helpful for folks interested in the role.
Yeah, because it's a director level, it is a bit more involved than some of our other loops. So what it looks like is there's a conversation with the hiring manager. There's a design presentation where we want to see a portfolio of work of someone's a past experience with the rebrand. And then from there, it's really about having conversations and with the key partners and stakeholders across the organization. So the chief marketing officer, the head of brands, the VP of design. So it's fairly involved, especially at that executive level, just because of the director level.
That makes a lot of sense. And usually, because again, I'm imagining we only talked about the remote aspects of the team and the organization. In a normal world, whenever that is supposed to happen, back again, are there any aspects of the interview process that involve kind of meeting the team, and maybe not just the interview process, but as a team itself? Are there moments in time where you kind of get to meet your teammates in person?
Yes. So during the portfolio review, you'd be meeting some of the brand designers and some of the other design leaders on the team. So that would be that's the main kind of meeting the team moment in the interview process.
Okay. That sounds really cool. If anyone has any other questions specific to the interview process, or this whole process of applying for the role, feel free to again include them in the chat or include them in the DesignX community Slack group, where Amy is there, and hopefully we are able to get some time to answer those questions as well. So as we are reaching our last 5 minutes, we had a few questions that I could not include in our conversations because they were a little specific. So one question we had from Katie was, when a design is being implemented, are there any specific tips you have for supporting dev and QA? And what information is helpful for them to have, or any? I think if we are able to get a little more sneak peek on the process of handover for design, I think that's what Katie's implying at.
John, do you want to take this one?
Sure. My team doesn't work with engineering too often, so I'll kind of dust off some memories from my team on time on revenue. I say that it's very collaborative. So there's not really a here's the design, see you around kind of experience. It's really bringing your engineer in really early, often collaborating on like a design project. The QA part of it is really a partnership. One of my favorite experiences was working with the guy, Steven, on the revenue team, and we just kind of like sit down, share screens, kind of go over it together, take notes, like review things that aren't working or some kind of bug that's happening. So it's very, very hands-on and very collaborative. So I think a lot of it is sort of like the Zoom IRL experience as much as we can versus like asynchronous, like read this thing and then get back to me kind of experience. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's how it works.
Yeah, that definitely, I think, answers the question. I really like the part of kind of keeping it as much IRL, as possible, especially when the teams are remote, because you can't just kind of walk over someone's desk and have a quick chat around any challenges you have with the handover. So that makes a lot of sense. We had one more question on LinkedIn. Ashley was asking if either of you are able to share any resources on how you are scaling the career paths, the design specific career paths or the framework, as well as the functions at Zapier. So I think, Amy, you hinted at like how fast the team grew. Used to be quite nimble, and now you're 26 and growing. So are there any kind of specific resources or kind of practices that have helped you a lot in helping scale the team?
There's no one resource or link that comes to mind, but some of the things that have been important for us is, Zapier has a really big culture of the written word being really powerful. And so one thing that we did as we were establishing brand design as a new discipline was John worked on creating a series of articles that talked about what it would look like if we had brand design at Zapier. So we collaborated on that together at some points, and that was really helpful. And people are still able to refer back to it and see the line of thinking there. So it becomes an evergreen resource we can share within the company. Other things that I think can help is just trying to, rather than jumping to, we need a whole new function, going, proving the need out in a small space. So we've done this with content design, where we've hired one content designer and then really proven out their effectiveness, and then pointed to that and said, look at how amazing it's been to have this person here. This is what they've done. This is the impact they've had. Let's hire another. And then you do that enough times, and lo and behold, you've built out a function. So oftentimes that's an easier sell to execs than to say, let's hire 5 people right out of the gate. So those are some of the tactics that we've used in order to prove out the need for these additional skill sets within the team.
That's really helpful, and I think it's almost like the approach, the mindset that you have for kind of designing your products and platforms. It's kind of a similar framework being applied. And I know quite a few folks really enjoyed Peter Merhol's book on org design for design orgs, for fast scaling design orgs as well. If book recommendations was also something Ashley was
that's a great
interested
one.
in.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great title.
Okay, so yeah, true. I'm always like, what comes for design org? No, org
Yeah,
design.
Yes, it's like my Bible.
Yeah. So as we are coming to the end of the session, I have one more question, which is no one's asking. I'm just curious about for both of you, which is if there was kind of a Zap that you wished existed but doesn't right now. Could be anything. You could go as creative as you want. What would that be?
One that I have sat down and tried to put together and then got distracted on was my partner and I are very into cooking, and I would love a Zap where I could just, it would be triggered by the date. So it would be the Friday afternoon. It would send me recipes, which would then get condensed down into a shopping list, which could then get texted to us both.
Right.
But the problem is I never want to, I want the recipes to always be different. And there's some complications there. But yeah, if it could streamline kind of the whole, what are we making? What are we going to cook? What do we need to buy? And then the coordination between the two of us. It's totally doable. I just haven't sat down it yet.
Yeah.
That's so true. That's
mine is really nerdy. So I'm a runner. And I go on these really big runs on the weekend, and I always usually take the same route home, which means I cross these railroad tracks. And if the train is on it, I have to go way out of the way. I have to usually go like 2 miles out of the way to get back home. So I know there are websites that are like, is the drawbridge open? Yes or no?
Oh.
You know what I mean? It'd be great if I could basically get like a text, because I have my phone with me, to be like, the train is up or whatever, or running, go somewhere else. So I know, so I don't have to be like, oh, I got to go around or whatever. Yeah, that's what
that sounds pretty cool. That's almost like, it's like Google Maps does it with other modes of transportation, and like, oh, the bus will come here, and then you get the subway there, and so it's almost like for running. That sounds really interesting too.
I'm sure it's
okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah.
So I maybe not for the creative director role, but any other kind of roles that open up on the team and folks are interested. Maybe a neat way to get your your resume up the pile would be kind of build any of these two Zaps, and you could use that as your introductory cover letter thing to get into the interview process.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you so much, John and Amy. Anything else that you any kind of closing thoughts about Zapier, about the design team that you would like the folks watching to know about?
I don't think so. I think I'm just really grateful for you reaching out and hosting us today.
Absolutely.
I hope everyone had a good time hearing a little bit more behind the scenes, and feel free to reach out if you have any further questions.
Yeah, same with me.
Awesome. Really appreciate both of you taking out the time, and also getting into the nitty gritties of some of the things on the team and how design at Zapier happens. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who joined in. Thanks to the folks who contributed questions, and there was also kind of a panel discussion going on at some point on LinkedIn, which is really neat to see. So thank you once again. And if you have more questions, Amy is in the DesignX Slack group. Reach out there. The job is on the job board and the jobs channel as well on Slack if you want to read the official job description for the creative director role. Thank you so much, and I will see you all on Slack. Thanks again, John and Amy. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that was John and Amy from Zapier Design Team. So let's make sure we carry forward the conversations. Head to, if you are not part of the Slack group, you can head to designx.community, learn about the membership, and apply to join the Slack group. And if you are already there, let's make sure the conversations do go on. And if you've not used Zapier in the past, again, not trying to kind of sell any affiliate links here, but Zapier is a tool that I definitely really enjoy as being part of my toolkit for all the different projects that I work on. So highly recommend checking it out if you've not done already. And it has quite some neat recipes already built in that you can experiment with. And I will see you back on Slack. Thank you so much. Bye.